this is important for you as a borrower to know how much your mortgage broker is getting paid. So imagine this, for a loan amount of 500,000, what is the average lender paid compensation to mortgage brokers in the US? And do you think this amount is fair? So Jeff's going to pull up some choices here. Here's A, $7,500 or 1.5% of the loan amount. B is 12,500 or 2.5% of the loan amount. C is $5,000 or 1% of the loan amount. Or D, $10,000 or 2% of the loan amount. Again, we're using a $500,000 loan amount as an example. So for those of you watching, if you look at these choices, just think to yourself, where would you pick the average? In other words, in the industry. What I'm getting at here is I'm using industry averages. In the U.S. residential mortgage industry, when it relates to mortgage brokers delivering loans to wholesale lenders, what would you guess is the average lender paid compensation percentage that most mortgage brokers request? Now, I've given you a minute to think about that. Here's the answer. It's actually D, $10,000 or 2% of the loan amount. Now, is that fair or not? Well, obviously, that's a subjective question. Some borrowers may think that's not fair. A lot of mortgage brokers might think that's very fair. And again, what that involves is we're getting compensated. This is the kinds of percentages that we would declare to our lenders we're set up with as to how much we want to get paid for each loan we deliver. So what that question and the answer reveals is that in the U.S., mortgage brokers on average ask their lenders to pay them 2% of the loan amount when that loan is delivered to them and funded by them. So then I would suggest to you that these different amounts, these ranges, again, from 1% to 2 3/4, in this example, in terms of the four choices we gave you, 1% to 2.5%, that can have an impact, not can, it will have an impact on what the actual rate you're going to get if you're looking for the best rate available from that broker based on not charging you any points. So let me give you, as a next example, what is the corresponding rate that you would get based on these four lender paid comp choices. And this, I think you're going to find this to be very telling. For the $7,500 lender paid comp, again, 1.5% of the loan amount, the 0-point rate. And I did this yesterday, by the way, and I think today's conditions are probably pretty close to this. If your broker is getting a lender paid comp of 1.5% of your loan amount, and you're applying for a $500,000 loan with them, that lender is going to pay your broker $7,500, and you're going to get a rate of 6.5 at no points. Now, what about B? What if your broker has lender paid comp set up with their lender, and you want a 0-point rate from that broker, but they have lender paid comp set up with their lender at 2.5%. That's $12,500 is what they want to be compensated for when they package your loan. Get your application, collect all your documents, make sure they're all in order, make sure that the package meets the criteria for qualifying and getting the loan approved, all the underwriting guidelines. They want 2.5% of your loan amount as compensation for doing that work for you. Well, guess what happens to your rate? You can see it there, 6 7/8, not 6.5. If you want a 0-point rate and your broker has demanded 2.5% of your loan amount from the lender they're going to deliver your loan to, and if you want a 0-point rate from that broker, they're going to have to offer you a higher rate, 6 7/8. That's 3/8 higher than if that broker was only demanding 1.5% lender paid comp. Well, let's look at C. If your broker is only asking for 1% of the loan amount on a $500,000 loan, that's $5,000. And if you want a 0-point rate from that broker, your rate's better. It's 6 3/8. In fact, you're 0.5% better if you're using a broker who only requires 1% lender paid compensation versus if you're using a broker who wants 2.5% compensation. So obviously you can see that's a big rate differential between a 1% lender paid comp and a 2.5% lender paid comp. And then finally for number D, or letter D, a $10,000 lender paid comp. Again, this is the average in the industry. The average broker in the industry requests a 2% lender paid comp from their lenders. Well, that means the average broker out there, if you want a 0 point rate from them, a rate that's going to cover their compensation and then allow you not to have to pay any points in addition, the average would be 6.75. And guess what? That's still 3/8 higher than the broker who only wants 1% instead of 2%. So the underlying point to be made here is, I think when you're out shopping for a loan, what you want to do is a couple things. One is you want to do the shopping on the same day when you're talking to multiple originators. Again, whether it's a broker or a bank or a credit union, always get your quotes, preferably in writing, on the same day. And you're doing that to ensure that the quotes you're getting all are reflective of the market conditions on that day that all of us mortgage originators are dealing with. And then as you do that, and if you're seeing differences in the rate offered, and let's assume your one is 0 point rate, because that is a majority of the time what borrowers want. If you start to see some differences in rate from one originator to the next, especially if you're checking with multiple brokers, I think that's where you'll have the opportunity, and you should in fact inquire, okay, I've got your quote. Please tell me, how much are you getting paid for us, for you to offer us these terms? And that would be an interesting conversation. One I certainly welcome, and on rare occasion I'll have a borrower ask me that, and I make it very clear and I'm very upfront about it as to where we are on this scale. But it's important that you do that, because that will help you understand why you may see a differential in rates quoted from broker to broker or mortgage originator to mortgage originator, because what you're getting quoted in rate, especially if you want no points, is very dependent, in fact, directly correlated to what that originator, or in this case, we're talking about brokers, what that broker is going to get paid by their lender as per the lender paid compensation agreement they set up when they signed up with that lender, I should say. Now, in case you don't already know, if you've watched the show for a long time, and we've promoted this for a long time, but I thought this was a good uh, point in time to go over this with you again. We pride ourselves and consider ourselves to be highly competitive with the loan terms that we offer to our clients. We've always had that focus. I generally think that in a lot of cases, borrowers are charged too much in terms of rate and fees. I'll remind you, for example, on the fee side, MortgageWorks in our 27-year history has never charged any miscellaneous fees, processing documents, underwriting, none of that. We never have. But more importantly, in terms of these different percentages of loan amount for lender paid comp, again, in case you aren't already aware, on most of our programs, we're at 1%. We're not at 1.5. We're not at 2. We're certainly not at 2.5. Never have been. In fact, throughout the history of our company, we've generally ranged between. We were at one point as high as 1.5. We realized that was a little rich. We took it down to 1 3/8 and then 1.25. And for some time now, we are at 1 on most of our programs.